So my husband just got this message. Oh no, that's my face. Obviously I have to have my face on his phone so that it reminds him that he's got a wife. So let's just get into this. There's the message. Right, he got this message. Wait, let's do the whole message. This message saying that his vaccine appointment has been pushed out. What a bummer. And that's mainly because of short supply. Just as well though, because he is scared of needles and he's pretty much like this guy. But despite all the screaming, he does want his vaccine. And then it got me thinking, what about this vaccine war over here? The shortfall he's experiencing is just a general setback the UK is facing because the manufacturers can't really get hold of that liquid gold quick enough.
Okay, and what do you want me to do about that?
They can't get it made quick enough. And that is no surprise given the sweet release we will have from this wretched virus once we are vaccinated. By the way, I am super bunged up today because I feel like I've got the flu or something, so bear with. But it did get me thinking about the vaccine war and also vaccine production in general, which was an area of research during my PhD. So let's sprinkle the facts, guys. This EU route over vaccines will impact us because the situation is so delicate. Lives are at stake and the drug maker at the centre of it for now is AstraZeneca, and it's becoming harder for the UK to get hold of the vaccine. So what the hell is Ursula Von Der Leyen up to by stopping my husband getting the vaccine and me enjoying his shrieks of pain?
Oops.
And also the impact that it will have on our economy and of course our personal finances. There has been a real imminent threat bubbling over the last few weeks of an all-out COVID vaccine war between the UK and the EU, and while both sides are trying to quell and calm the tensions, vaccine nationalism is still haunting Europe, and there are real and imminent threats of Ursula Von Der Leyen, who has threatened to use emergency powers to manage the crisis of the century.
What is it? Supine protoplasmic invertebrate jellies.
Her main gripe is that when the EU was struggling to vaccinate their citizens, then certain countries did not help. Certain countries like the UK.
I told you that this was not good.
Article 122 of the EU Treaty, which authorises emergency controls to the distribution of emergency goods at the time of a civil emergency, arguing that this pandemic falls into that category. Now, Dominic Raab is getting tough, and this story is far from over, with plenty of news on this in the weeks to come. But I did remember Dominic doing this.
You negotiated a Brexit deal, then you resigned over that Brexit deal, then you voted for that Brexit deal.
Ugh, honestly. But first things first, is this just a Europe versus UK thing? Been living through that for what feels like ages, guys.
And that pisses me off.
I mean, we had Brexit and now this, and what next? But no, let's get it straight. It isn't just an EU problem, it's a global issue. Take the USA for example. There, the vaccine makers must complete the domestic contracts first before exporting. And until last week, there was a blanket ban on all COVID-19 vaccines being exported out of the US. So protectionism right there from the biggest economy and the icon of democracy.
Fugazi, it's fake.
Yeah, fugazi, fugazi, it's a wazi, it's a woozy, it's a fairy dust.
And with the US, it's not just the vaccines either, but a ban on all linked manufacturing as well. So this would include things like equipment, ingredients, and it has taken a lot of arm twisting and political even maneuvering to have the vaccine available by the US to Canada. So Canada, which on paper has ordered more jabs per head than anywhere else in the world, but still struggles to get supplies. India is also taking that approach and stepping back too. And where cases begin to rise in India, the Indian government sees it as a national duty to pull back the supply to international customers. The thing is, the irony of all of this is that while the research and discovery of the vaccine is a result of an intensive research and collaboration across the globe, the product of a connected and integrated world, the end result, this golden elixir of a vaccine, is driving people apart, every nation and person for herself. But why is this an issue then? Well, it's by knowing how international these supply chains are.
Nobody, I don't care if you're Warren Buffett or if you're Jimmy Buffett, Nobody knows.
And let me tell you, this will actually blow your mind, and also why vaccine protectionism is so silly and foolish. So between 30th January and mid-March, the EU exported 10 million doses to the UK. But within the EU bloc, there are more than 30 plants involved in producing the vaccine. But let's break this down a little bit further. The beloved AstraZeneca vaccine, which has become the political football of this whole issue in Europe, well, it has about 25 sites across 15 countries in the EU.
You guys are in a crisis.
Moderna produces vaccine ingredients in Switzerland and completes manufacturing in Spain and then ships onto the US. Pfizer produces all of its non-homegrown vaccine in the EU with just a small portion of the supply chain linked to the UK. And it goes on and on and on. But why is that, Fifi? Why? Well, I'll tell you, it's called the economic theory of comparative advantage. I was having this chat over dinner with my husband because the economist that he is, we're talking about comparative advantage. The law of comparative advantage describes how under free trade, a country will produce more of and consume less of a good for which they have a comparative advantage. For example, countries will produce parts of the supply chain that they're best at. It's the most efficient way to produce and at the best cost as well. So in the case of vaccine production, certain countries will produce the ingredient, others will then go on to manufacture, and then there will be countries that finish the process and take it onto distribution from the plant to even regional distribution sites. It's a complex and multi-layered process, guys. And remember the saying, jack of all trades, master of none, and all that jazz? Well, that's why comparative advantage actually works really well.
Finkel took it personally.
Oh my head. Now, working collaboratively is not an easy concept to grasp, as we all live in our countries and feel a deep connection to our home. But this theory is the modern block of economics and underpins our foreign trade policies. Right now, we see protectionism playing out 1,000,000%, where countries are putting national interest at the forefront, and all countries should do the same. However, this contradicts that economic theory and will also cause delays to vaccine manufacture. There is that cost aspect, prices go up, but also production becomes efficient. And so the rollout, like injecting my husband, is delayed. But despite what economic theory tells us, states want to go at it alone anyway. Take our home country, the UK, as an example. The rhetoric is very similar to in crisis and war-like situations. We need to have domestic production. You can't really rely upon economic sense and free democracies to honour market contracts. And so we have to make sure that certain manufacturing is done in the UK. For governments, not just now, this has always been debate. How much do you produce at home, even if it costs you more to do so?
Rightfully so.
But the economic policy dictates that global supply chains are good. They're great actually, and using the laws of comparative advantage, we get the best product always, at the best price, at the quickest speed. It's perfectly optimized. The thing is, this gnarly virus is an unexpected showstopper and exposes vulnerabilities in global supply chains, which are political. Where in the past freedom of movement and agility in having year-round supply were prized, now it's about resilience and sovereignty. When you think about it, the virus has already ticked off something that was in place since 2008. That is the rise of populism, and the virus has heightened a drive towards protectionism and self-sufficiency, which is the final point really. There are no local fixes. It's the end result of not implementing the collective good that we collectively bear the brunt.
I know it's tough now, but things will get better.
How do you know that?
And so what are the consequences then? One study from the Chamber of Commerce pointed out a $9.2 trillion loss to the global economy. GDP in 2019 was just below $90 trillion. That's over 10% drop if the governments fail to ensure delivery of COVID vaccines to developing nations. And guess what? About 50% of the drop in global GDP will hit the advanced economies of the world first.
We must find that woman.
Britain included. Sure, I agree with you, all of these figures are speculative, but it does give us a sense of the issue and why mutual trust and cooperation are always the hallmark of prosperity.
Can I get my yayas from IKEA?
And that vaccine nationalism will have a very high price for decades to come, guys. And now I do think it will get better, and hopefully the husband will get his vaccine at the next appointment. But with all things corona, we often talk about crashes, and the biggest chatter in the weeks to come is the inflated price of global stock markets, particularly those in relation to tech. I mean, we have the hotly hyped Deliveroo IPO, which dropped like crazy today here in the UK, and the tech sector is on tear. So as long-term investors, the hardest thing to do is to do nothing at all, but it is easier if we understand it. So here are a couple of videos right here which cover the tech crash, and also how doing nothing and letting compounding do its thing will help you ride it all out. So click there and I'll see you there.